Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday morning. I could start by introducing myself with the details of what I do for a career. I could explain to you what my company does. I could rattle off a bunch of affiliations and companies I've worked for and all the places I've been, but I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to introduce myself by saying that, hi, I'm Erica. I'm Tom. Oh, hi. I love interaction. I'm Erica, and I'm Tom and Debbie's daughter. So my parents were pastors, and they started our church in our basement when I was 9 months old. So when people say they grew up in church, I'm like, no, sis. I really did. Hey, I really did. And our life was really focused on one thing and one thing only. Everything that we did revolved around this particular mission of getting people together to talk about the heart of the matters of life. What is it that we can do collectively to sustain our spirits and our souls in a really crazy world? That was what drove our entire family. How can we create the spaces and the conversations that help people live better and do better? How can we pull from wisdom to lead better lives, to feel like whole selves? So that's the legacy that I come from, and in some ways that drives my work today. But not just my work, it drives really who I am. I introduced myself that way today because of a lesson that I learned a couple years ago, and that's the lesson that I'm going to share with you all today. It's the lesson that I wrote about in my book, You Deserve the Truth. I was a workaholic most of my life. I remember being a little girl and going into my mother's office and offering to help the assistant kind of organize her desk. And I would work there and work there and work there. And at the end of the day, she would give me $1 whole. And it wasn't the dollar that excited me. It was the validation. It was the praise. Everyone came around and told me how talented I was, how smart I was. And I quickly learned that work was the best representation of myself in the world. That it's where I could get validation and love and praise and attention. The older I got as I went through school and it became more of a focus on work and career, I also began to believe and identify with the fact that work was my key to success. That the way to build a big, beautiful life, a successful life, was to work and to work hard. But I didn't come into the world believing that, and neither did any of you. Most of those ideas that we've developed about work came from the stories that surround us, the stories that we were fed, not just from our parents, not just from our families, not just from the people that we grew up around, but from our entire society. See, stories are the framework for the life that we live. And really, they shape worlds. They are the walls of the home that we come from, and they are the walls of our society and our culture. And many of us have consumed powerful narratives and stories about work. That work is inherently good, right? We'll get to what it is later, but if it's good or bad, but no matter what, if you're working and you're working hard, that's a good thing. In America, work is a virtue. That work is the key to your success. It is the way to get the life that you want. That really, ultimately, you are your work. You are what you do. And so I believed that for many years. And it's funny because so many people now believe it and don't realize that's not always how it's been. For most of human history, our identity was actually tied to the facts of our birth. Before the 18th century, the way we introduced ourselves really had to do with who we are phenotypically, where we come from, our geography, our tribe, our race, our gender, all of these boxes and these kind of check marks that we had no say in. And then in the mid-18th century, something started to change. The nature of work, particularly here in the US, the nature of work started to change. We began to want to burst out of those boxes and chase this thing, this elusive thing called the American dream, and we realized that the way we could do it was through work, and if we worked really hard, it didn't matter where we came from, it didn't matter where we were born, it didn't matter what society thought about us. And so very quickly, we started to see this merging of self and work as our identity. As how we show up in the world. But here's the problem with that. It leads to a very emotionally unstable life. When your identity is tied to what you do, when that changes or there's some uncertainty in that or you don't feel fulfilled in that, it feels like your world is falling apart. That's what happened to me a few years ago. I had been that workaholic that believed that my best contribution to this world was through my work. I began my career in politics and social change, which is another industry that tells you work is everything, And I got to this point where I felt broken and lost and hopeless, and I just stopped. I had my own black girl eat, pray, love moment. I walked away and I said, I gotta unpack how I got here. How did I get to this point in my life, and what were the stories about work that had shaped me? And I realized there were more than just those kind of timeless ones, that work is good and you should work hard. Our generation as millennials, we'd added a whole nother set of requirements about work, right? That it has to be fun, that it shouldn't feel like work, that it should be our passion, that we should be working around the clock and yet somehow only have a 4-hour work week. That it should also be the best way that we use every single gift and talent and skill that we have, that it should look really, really pretty on Instagram, that we can get off in enough time to go to our soul cycle class, but then keep working late into the night and then put it on the gram. We had all of these requirements. I was fascinated by how we started to use the word job and work interchangeably as a society. When you're out of work, it means you lost your job. When you're looking for work, you're looking for a job. But if you actually look at the definition of those two things, they are not one and the same. Our job is our social contract in a materialistic world, in a capitalist society, right? It's how we make money. But the true definition of work is just efforts that we put towards something, hoping to achieve a particular purpose or outcome. They are efforts towards a purpose. We inherently know this because when a waiter comes to take our plate before we're finished, we say, I'm still working on it. We get that work is just effort. And when I understood that, I started to really think, wow, what are the purposes of my life that are worth my effort beyond my career? Where should I be applying more work, more effort, more heart, more blood, sweat, and tears to developing who I am as a person beyond just my job, beyond just making money, beyond just my brand? It kind of felt like my entire life I'd been trying to pack all of who I was into a carry-on suitcase. And I was ready to get on the plane with that one little suitcase that was overflowing. I was trying to stuff every part of my identity into my career. And when I had this epiphany, it was as if someone told me, you can take 4 bags on, sis. You don't have to do that. You can work anywhere, and your efforts go towards this thing that I love. One of my favorite theologians, her name is Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, and she calls it the work your soul must have. I started to wonder, what is the work my soul must have? So why am I sharing that with you today? Because you all are actually here to talk about your careers. You're here to talk about work and get some great advice for your brand. But one of the things I learned when I was younger in church was that we all come wearing our Sunday best. We all come looking good, looking clean. We're here to talk about who we are and project the best version of ourselves to the world, especially at an event like this. But I guarantee you, there's someone in this room, I don't know who it's for, it may not be every single one of you, but I guarantee you that there's someone in this room that underneath the Sunday best, underneath the job title, underneath the business that you are frantically trying to build, there's someone who's a little overwhelmed and a little confused and feeling a little desperate, like, God, if I don't figure this out now, I gotta figure this out. This is my last shot. This is the thing I gotta do. I don't know how to build a life in this world. I'm really, really trying so hard to build that perfect career that everyone has, that I assume the person next to me has. And we come into these rooms and we hold that really close and we introduce ourselves with, hi, this is my job. I wanna encourage you today. Take off your Sunday best. Let's change the story of work and start introducing ourselves with a little bit of vulnerability, with a little bit of the soul stuff that needs to happen in order for us to build fulfilling lives. See, my mission for doing this isn't just to get everybody really emotional and touchy-feely. It's not, really. It's because imagine what would happen if we all built our businesses and created the things that we're creating in our world from a place of wholeness first. Imagine what would happen if we weren't building things to hide our insecurities, if we weren't building things to feel worthy, but we were building things that were of value and were needed in the world simply because we can. I look at our society today and I think how many of the problems that we see existing, whether in politics, whether in tech, whether in corporate America, come because some man built something from a place of weakness and insecurity. Because someone didn't do the work their soul needed. So that's my challenge to you today. I told you, hi, I'm Tom and Debbie's daughter. Who are you? We're going to write that new story of work together, and then together we'll build our businesses, build our brands, and change the world. Thank you.